Hi, everyone. Just wanted to say good afternoon and welcome to the webinar today. We want to thank you all for joining us. My name is Olivia from Information Management Services. We're excited to have you here today for the web-based mobile capture webinar featuring Kodak Alaris Info Input. We have presenters today directly from Kodak Alaris. We've got Kelly Garvey and Mike Paternoster. These guys are the top experts in web-based capture technology at Kodak. All right, so everyone that logs in will be on mute just to avoid any audio interference, but feel free in the meantime to send any questions that you have through the chat box on your screen. And once we're done, we will do a question and answer session, and we will answer those questions that come over chat and open up the phone lines as well if you want to ask a question that has more detail. Okay, and one last thing, we are recording the webinar so that those who were not able to make it or anybody can access the webinar information in their own time on the website. You will also be sent a link to this webinar in case you want to look at it later or share with any of your colleagues. And finally, we're going to get started. So I'm going to hand this over to Kelly Garvey at Kodak Alaris to go ahead and take it over.
All right, thanks, Olivia. Good afternoon and hello, everybody. We're glad to have you all on the call and looking forward to talking to you a little bit about web capture and how that might fit. Feel free as we go through any of this to stop and ask questions. Make this as interactive as possible. We welcome your questions, and what we'll do is I'll kind of introduce the concept of web capture and where it fits, and then I'll turn it over to Mike for a full technical demo, and we've got a few jobs lined up, and we'll be able to walk you through all of those jobs. So hopefully something will be will look familiar to you as you think about how you capture images and documents within your organization. So I think Mike's got it up on the screen, and we're just going to, if you just want to present that, Mike, put that in presenter role, and you can just click to the second page. Can you take that out to the, if you hit that little present button on the, yep, will that, to the right, one over? Yep.
Oh yeah, there we go, sorry.
There we go. Okay. So really what we're going to start off by, where does web capture kind of fit within an organization, and what are the benefits and what are some of the challenges that it addresses? Can you go back?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay, yeah, sorry.
There you go. So so it's showing in kind of dual. So you get to cheat and see our next slide too. So try not to read ahead too much. But so some of the idea here, the basis of this tool was to allow companies to capture documents at the point of origin, and that's a term we kind of use. So where the document is created or where it comes into your organization, and that's more of a distributed capture piece than what most companies are familiar with these days, and that's shipping all your paper documents and all your electronic documents into one central location, and having one group that manages that whole process of capturing, indexing, and recording it in a content management or a repository of some kind. So the idea here is that we use some of the external employees and some of the knowledge workers to do some of that work, so there's less to be done in that centralized location. So the idea is to streamline. It also makes the information and the content available quicker. So if there are turnaround times and you need to be able to produce documents or produce information as it's coming in, so this is a great way to take a document in at a satellite location of your business and have that information readily available across your organization. So the idea is to take advantage of technology and make that content available as soon as possible. That includes using the web. So the software we're going to talk about today is web-based. So your user at any location around the world just needs a internet connection. So you log into the application via the web. You could log in from a mobile device, so you could take a picture of a document, or you could take a picture of in an insurance situation, you could take a picture of an accident site, and then send that in and index it appropriately so you can find it later. The other nice thing about this is you're able to really control who sees what and who can do what pieces of the capture process. So to make sure that you know exactly who scanned the information, where that image is in the process, and making sure that it gets to the final destination as quickly as possible. Because it's web-based, we can do some really nice things from a licensing standpoint. So the licensing model is a shared model across an organization. So for 100 knowledge workers to be able to scan documents in, maybe you only need 15 or 20 licenses of the product because only certain people are in at certain times. So it's really a nice way to do that. There are no volume charges. So if you run 2 million scans through the system, the price isn't different than if you run 100 scans through the system. So really a very scalable piece. And the other need for this is if we were going to transfer this responsibility out to the knowledge worker, we had to make this product really easy. And as we get into the demo, you'll see there are really only a couple buttons, and the scan user really only has a couple options. So it's very, very easy to really look at. So Mike, if you can push forward one.
Yep.
So like I said before, and I'll breeze through this so we can get into the meat of the demo, but it is a browser-based capture application. It runs off of Java, but there is an application that can be downloaded if you use a different browser from Java. Mike will talk a little bit about that. It is centrally managed, so the main software sits on a server inside your organization, and so your IT and administrative staff have the ability to manage users and groups and push jobs out on the fly and publish new jobs or correct different things, so very flexible from that standpoint. There's really no installation needed from that standpoint because you just load. You've got the small server component, and as a user logs in to scan, the newest version of the software is loaded each time, and we use that processing power of the knowledge worker's PC to do a lot of the work on the document itself. So all updates, deployments, and support comes out centrally and is pulled down each time the user logs in. So very easy from a user perspective. They don't have to manage upgrades or do any of that. All they have to do is be able to scan from their PC. We already covered the kind of the licensing model and the page volumes. So, and since we're doing a demo, I won't waste any more time here. Mike, if you go forward one more. and you'll need to click, if you can click through this one, Mike, to the all the way to where the disc appear on the screen.
Okay.
So right there. So in a traditional capture environment, you've got scanners and PCs, and there is software loaded on each PC and at each server level. And so that's how scanning was traditionally done. You're managing a scan client on each PC, and the worker connects that way. That's a lot of IT resources that need to keep those versions updated and make everything keep everything in line. If you push forward a little bit, you can keep going. Just keep going to the browser. So this software, what it does is it eliminates the need for that software on the PCs themselves and presents a browser application to the user, taking away all of that need. This is just a nice illustration of how the software works. and from the browser we push it to the server, and from the server we can push it to a database, a file share. Other services that you may have, if you have advanced processes running in Kofax, KTM, or Captiva, or another system, we can push it to those and really streamline how those documents come in into your organization. Go forward one more.
Yep.
So as we go through, and I won't talk too much about how the product looks because we're going to dive into it, but it is, like I said, it's a Java-based application. It supports scanners up to 210 pages a minute, so it supports the fastest and largest scanners that we have in our organization. And because of that, you can do that distributed capture, which is what it was intended, what it was developed for, but you can also use it for your centralized capture. Does barcode, OCR reading, database lookup, and we'll go through some of those through the demo, indexing, drag and drop. You can pull in electronic documents, different types of electronic files, so PowerPoints, anything that you need to pull in from that standpoint. We can also monitor a folder, so we can pull in documents coming in from another electronic documents coming in from other locations, maybe from a fax server or an email server. If you push forward, you'll probably have to click through this. Some of these slides build out for.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we got one more, Mike, and then I'll turn it over. So just to give you kind of an idea of how this works and all the areas that we can, that this application will work from. So you've got your mobile components, so you can correct and you can capture those documents that you're capturing as a field worker. You've got your agents maybe in a small office where they can scan and submit, and all of that comes into our main server and then is pushed out to your repository or content management system, or maybe a line of business system, depending on how you're set up. Maybe one more, Mike. So we're going to come back to this slide. So this is how we would embed the software within a line of business application. So we're going to come back to this. I'm going to turn it over to Mike for the demo portion. But please interrupt and ask questions as you go, and we'll try to address those as you ask them.
Yeah, sounds good, Kelly. Thanks. So I have, I just displayed my Internet Explorer. Everybody can see that, my browser?
Yeah, I can do it.
All right, great. So we get to our info input server by any browser and using a URL with the server's name. In this case, on the top here, you can see my URL is localhost, because right now my computer in my office is my info input server, and it's also acting as my client workstation. So I simply open up my browser, type in that URL. We had a screenshot of this earlier during some of Kelly's slides, but it's a real clean, open GUI for the operator to see. Down here on the bottom right, you can see I'm logged in as the administrator. I'm using a default scan profile right now, and we basically have a scan button, a new batch button over here, and when we exit out of the program, we can exit out through the exit icon. Over here on the right, before I get into the demo and make a new batch, as the administrator, I can see all of these functions where I can create a new job setup. I can monitor active users, display settings, and manage and create scan profiles and things like that. You can lock down these settings depending upon what group an operator is in and simply what permissions you give that operator. So the first thing a scan operator will do when they get to this page is hit the scan icon, and I get a window for a new batch. I'm not using a scanner right now, so I'm just going to browse to some documents, but when I browse to those documents and bring them in, a scan window is going to appear. It's the same as if I was scanning. So you can scan with this, and you can also import documents. I can just hit create over here and just make a blank batch, and I can just drag and drop, like Kelly said, PowerPoint documents, emails, and things like that, and create a custom batch with a whole bunch of ad hoc documents if I want. What we're going to import today is some housing application forms. So I would click on this job pull down over here, and I would see an assortment of jobs. Right now, I have about double the amount of these jobs in the job setup part of the info input server, but I can make jobs published to everybody so that they can see them. But if there's some jobs that I'm working on and I'm creating and making changes to, you can unpublish those jobs so that people cannot see them. And I'll show you that after we make a new batch. So as the scanner operator chooses this pull down, I'm going to hit housing application forms. It defaults to this name that we have set in the job setup, and I'll hit create and scan, and it's just going to go to a browse window for me, and I'm just going to pull in a bunch of these documents. And this is what our scan window looks like when it comes in. These forms, you can see, have a barcode on them. And on the left side over here, underneath our Batch Explorer window, it gives us the name of our job that we're using. And I'm just going to make my window a little bit bigger over here. I have 6 documents and 13 pages. This displays all the documents. Over here, we have a little preview of all the documents. We have a little slide rule down here that we can increase the size of these, and we can scroll through over this way. I can see over here that we have a damaged barcode. We just crossed that out just to simulate a damaged barcode during the scanning process. So in this batch, we're going to do a little manual intervention with the index data. But these barcodes over here are doing a dual function for this job setup. When a barcode is seen in this particular job, we have a rule set up to create a new document. We also have a rule set up to read that barcode and populate one index field. We have a third rule set up for a database lookup where that information on that barcode, in this case it's a number, and it's going to do a database lookup on this server. That server can be anywhere, of course, that we can hit, and it's going to call back some information with the application person's name, social security number, and the date of birth. If you notice this little magnifier in the lower right-hand corner over here, if I just hover over that, I didn't have to click on that, but if I just hover over, it gives us a quick blowout of what that page looks like. So if I was in a smaller view, of course I can go to a higher view and pretty much see the whole page, but if I had a couple hundred pages or a couple thousand pages over here and I was in a small view to look at them all, I can just simply scroll over here and hover over here and just get a quick blowout of each page. This page over here is the one with the damaged barcode. You can see we just have it crossed out. So before I go into the index mode, I can come over here and I can just simply split that document and create a new document over there. So now we have 7 documents, of course, same amount of pages. We can slide pages back and forth over here. I can right-click on this and delete it. I can add and append pages to this document, or whichever one that I've highlighted. I can scan more and replace and append before I go into the indexing mode. I can also right-click on these pages and rotate them if I need to rotate them. So at this point, when if I'm happy with what I see here, I'll go into the indexing mode, and you can see that our barcode is automatically highlighted, and there's a series of numbers in there, and that's our case number. And again, we have 4 index fields here: the case name, along with the number, date of birth, and social security number. They're populated because of a database lookup that occurred in a split second when I hit indexing. This case number is the trigger on the database column table, and it brings back this information. On this page, there is no date of birth. That's just something that's in the database. But if I click on the Social Security number field, I get a little zone field over here that we created just to assist the operator, so that when they look at it, they can see, okay, this is the case number, that's the case name. Again, the date of birth is something that's coming back from the database, and the Social Security number is over here. We have a series of controls up top over here on the ribbon. If we want to take a closer look at this document, we can zoom it up. Of course, you can scroll around over here, but we have a cool little zoom window over here that we can zoom in on and get a closer look at the case name. If I click on Social Security, you can see how the preview automatically zooms to that area, and it'll go back and forth, so you can take a look at it. And then you can zoom out and bring it back to its original size. You can also do another rotation over here. And we also have the ability to add annotations to the image. So we can add notes to this, just like in any PDF reader program or application. We can also redact information from here. We can do some cropping. We can adjust the brightness and contrast of an image if it was a graphic image that we want to do that on. And we can scroll through each document and check our index information. Again, you can see the little zoom field over here, so we can check our index fields. One of these documents is not going to have information in it because we know it has a damaged barcode. So when we get to this, it's blank, and what I can do is we have what we call a rubber band OCR tool over here, where I can just marquee out an area and it'll automatically read what's in there. And you can see I just did a loose marquee area. I went over the lines and all that because it's just reading the characters. It's not going to recognize that horizontal line over there. It populates this automatically with the case number, and when I hit the tab key, it'll come back with the database lookup. And again, that's the case name and the date of birth and the Social Security number. And I can scroll through the rest of the document just to make sure that everything looks good. And another thing to keep in mind that, I'm manually scrolling through these documents. It's a small batch. It's 13 pages with 7 or 8 documents in there. But again, if we had 2,500 or 3,500 pages in here, and it was either 10 or 20 or 50 documents, you don't have to scroll through each one of these pages in order to get to the export stage. If we can set up rules and certain index field types to say that, hey, this Social Security number over here is going to be 9 numbers or 8 numbers, whatever it is. And if it's 7 numbers or if it's 10 numbers, then I want it to a validation error to occur or a message to occur so that the operator cannot export it. So we can also set it up for that way as well. But I just wanted to do some manual intervention to show you the features of the software. When you get to the last document and all the fields are successfully populated, we have a couple options to close the batch. We can also close the batch and get the next waiting batch. So what that means is, if, say, Kelly did some batches earlier this morning and he scanned them, but he didn't index them, he can have them in a queue for me to call up later on. So when I'm finished scanning this and indexing this, if I hit close and get the next waiting batch, any batches that are sitting in the queue waiting to be indexed or maybe need pages scanned and appended to that batch, I can choose this option and that will come up automatically. In this instance, I'm just going to hit close batch, and you can see down here it does a quick upload to the server, and then those pages that we just saw that I scanned in this case imported in, they get deleted automatically when that batch is uploaded to the server. So they don't reside on my client workstation anymore. So if you have a server in New York and you have a client working in Atlanta and in Ohio, whatever pages that they're using to create a batch or scan in or import in. Once they upload that to the server, they're cached on that scan client computer, but then they're deleted. And we have a batch manager window over here where we can see batches that have been output successfully. If there's any errors that occur, an error might occur if we're outputting to, say, a SharePoint or a FileNet server someplace or system, and there's a problem with the network, and of course that would error out. So you can always right-click on here and get any details if there's any sort of error message. This is the one that we just sent over here. We can see that it's finished. It gives us the job name, the batch name, and the time that it was created. And I can open up these batches again from an earlier date. Here's something from September 30th that's suspended. I can open that up and index that, or again add more pages to it, and so on and so forth. These particular pages have just been exported to locally on my hard drive over here into a folder called Housing Applications, and I have it set to automatically create a folder with the batch name and the unique counter number. You can see that's right now. And these are our PDFs that have been output. And I also output a separate CSV file with the index data in it. Oh, that's a small font right there. Make that a little bit bigger. So it's outputting the name, the case number, date of birth, and social security number, and then again that can be fed to any sort of system. And these outputs can vary. We can output, we can create custom modules to go wherever we need to go. Software comes with about a dozen or so export modules for SharePoint, application extender, content manager, so on and so forth. So you can export to multiple locations. Again, in this case, I just exported right to my local drive, but and again in PDFs and CSV data for the whole batch. I can break down that CSV data for each document. I can also output JPEGs and TIFFs simultaneously to different locations if I wish to as well. So that is how a batch is created in Info Input with a little manual intervention with indexing and exporting to, in this case, a local drive. Does anybody have any questions after seeing that? Does that bring up any comments or questions or anything? Kelly, did you want to add anything or see anything else, perhaps, with the batch?
Yeah, Mike, do you have the batch set up with the drop downs? Is that your adventure trips?
I do have one set up for that. Yeah. So let's make up another batch, and if I scroll through here, that's another job that Kelly mentioned. And it's an adventure trips job. This is an ad hoc type of job where if I hit create and scan, again, I'm just going to browse because I don't have a scanner hooked up here, but Adventure Trips is a adventure company, and I'm going to import a invoice and an itinerary. It's merged over here in the PDF, and it's going to be separated by a patch code. So it automatically creates two documents. If I use my little blowout tool over here, that's what my invoice for Adventure Trips looks like. And this is a two-page document for a trip itinerary. There's no database lookup over here, so when I go to index, it's going to come up over here and ask me for a form type. Since the forms that we're using to scan in or import into Adventure Trips are either going to be invoices or itineraries, instead of making two jobs with two sets of index fields, we have two form types set over here. So if the operator is looking at an invoice, they can come over here and just choose either invoices or itinerary. If I hit invoices, I get one set of index information. In this case, I can type in a name. I can proceed to the next one. I can use my rubber band OCR tool, and I can populate that information as well. Same with the price. And again, I can make this larger if I wish and scroll around and either use that tool, or I can type in, if it's really poor copy, you can always type in something, 99 or whatever. So I just want to show you an option that you can do an automatic and manual entry in there. When those index fields are complete, I can go to the next document, which is an itinerary, and I'm going to hit the itinerary form type, and that gives me 3 other sets of index data. And for the trip leader, we'll go back to here. We have Chris's name over here. The start date, you notice when I click on that, it automatically goes over to the start date. Now, this is what it looks like if there's a validation error. It comes up in red. You notice when I selected the trip leader's name, Chris Mazza, it came up in black, and it proceeded to the next index field. This one comes up in red, and down here we have a little legend and some help tips over here. And this has a validation failed message. And that's because we said that this particular index field needs to have a hyphen in it, not a slash. So you can see when I take that out, it automatically turns black, and it'll allow me to proceed to the next field. The reason why I like to show that is because that just shows how we can lock down some of the settings and control what should be in these index fields, so that if this is going into another ECM system or wherever it's going, if that date format needs to be a specific format, then you can lock that down. When I hit package type, I'm just going to back off a little bit on this. It automatically goes to the trip package area. So Adventure Trips has 3 different types of plans: gold, silver, and bronze. And in this instance, we just have a pull-down menu over here. So we set up our index field with these 3 choices. So I can just simply hit gold, and if I hit the next, I can close this batch out, and it'll export the batch. So that's just another different way of doing some indexing without doing the database lookup. That housing application form job, I have one in here that has blank pages in it. It's a new feature that we added with the latest release. This is a PDF that I'm bringing in that has a few blank pages in it. It's doing a separation off of the barcode and splitting up all my documents. You can see that one with the barcode that was a simulation of a damaged barcode. Again, it just skips right over that, and it's not going to separate that, but I can still manually intervene with that and do a separation. It's right over here. But one thing that we have is, if we come up to our Batch Explorer over here, we can right-click, and we can go to our More Options for Batch, and we can hit Find, and we can do a search for any blank pages. Now again, another small batch, 23 pages, 8 documents, but I just upgraded one of our customers with this software because they do batches about 2,500 to 3,500, really no more than 3,500 pages in their batches, and they might only have 10 or 12 documents in those 2,500 to 3,500 pages. And sometimes their scanner is not picking up on blank pages. So we have a slide scale over here that we can control the percentage of content that we see on that we want to have the software search for in blank pages. And we can just select down here, Find All in real time, and it just automatically, now again, it does it very quickly here. It's only 5 pages. It's a relatively small batch, but it highlights them all. And I can still blow out each one of these. I can see a little bit of text on the bottom there, a little bit on top. This one just has some on the bottom. So you can always just do a little check on it. But then you can just right click on here and you can hit delete selected pages, and you can just delete all the blanks. And then you can go right into your indexing mode and start indexing. So that's our little blank page removal feature in there. So I can scroll through all the documents, again, get to the end, and I can close out this batch. One other thing about the batch manager that we looked at before, now we just added another one in there. This one's still processing. I can refresh it. You can see it's processing over here. The step is in the export step. At some point, it'll finish. And you can see all of these are finished, but this one over here, the step is in indexing. So now I refresh this. These are all finished, but this one's not finished. It's in an index step, and it's been suspended. So what I can do with that job is I can come over here to our file folder icon, and I can hit either index next waiting batch, or I can just select a specific batch to index. The index next waiting batch feature is a nice feature because, again, if we have somebody in Ohio and somebody in Georgia and our server is in New York and there's 100 or there's over 1,000 batches that are waiting to be indexed, if you have multiple people working on that queue and you just want to get through it, you can just have that each one of the clients choose index next waiting batch, and it'll automatically pop up the next one that's available. So you can have multiple people chewing on a queue and get through. You can also hit select batch to index, and in this case, we're only going to have one batch come up because this is the only one that's suspended for indexing. So I can hit open batch, and this is a similar batch to what we were working on before in terms of it's the housing application job. And you can see it's a few documents over here, and I don't know why there's no mix. Yeah, I'm just going to open this up over here. So if I click on here, I can check all my index fields and make sure that they're all populated. And if they are, when I hit this next key over here, if there's any that are blank or any that have a bad validation, again with the hyphen or the slash or whatever rule that you assign to that index field, it'll come up and it'll tell you right now that you can't proceed because they're required fields and something may have failed, so it'll direct you right to it. If everything looks good, you can again close out the batch. And now that batch that we saw in the batch manager that was in the index step, now it's in the export step. And if I refresh it over here with my little refresh icon, it's finished. So now all of these are finished in here, and there's nothing in the index queue to call up. So that's how you can use this application for indexing. And some people in different locations, they'll have all they're doing is indexing batches that say Kelly and myself are creating and scanning, and someone else can be indexing at a later date. So that's how you can work out of this queue here.
Mike, do you want to take a look at the, well, first, I guess, are there any questions on that? If no questions, then you want to take a look at the job setup and kind of show some of the pieces of the job setup and
yeah,
just kind of the technical pieces, kind of the behind the scenes.
Yeah, sure. So again, I'm the administrator. I'm logged in rather as the administrator, and so I have access to all of this. So right off the bat, not all the operators will have access to what we call the jobs setup. And this window shows all of our jobs. Now you can see down here, I have about, there's 21 jobs in total. I have about 8 jobs that are not published. So basically what that means is that you can see this Alaris job 1. If I go to create a new batch, you simply can't see Alaris job 1. It's not in there because it hasn't been published. So again, that's how you can take jobs offline. So as an IT administrator, I can go into this job and I can make edits to it. I can still test this job on my end, but again, you can just take it out of circulation so nobody can use it. This housing application forms, this is the job that we were working on. This is where we got the batch naming from. We defined it over here for job name, counter domain. When we create this new batch, we can set a status on it automatically. So when you go into the batch manager, I can define one of these statuses right off the bat. If I create this batch and I know it's going to need more indexing or a QC check or whatever, I can assign that right off the bat when I create the batch. You can also have different batch levels over here. You can make it a private batch if you want, so that only this particular user can see that batch, so you can lock it down that way as well. We have some options for the batch, again, where we can allow import of eDocs, emails, things like that. We can allow those page annotations that I spoke about. I can uncheck that so we don't have that ability. Another cool thing we have is with this software on 3 different levels, we're allowing the operator or the administrator really to go in and modify the script. So if you want to parse out a barcode in a specific manner, you can go in here and you can modify this code in the pre-scan area, post-scan area, and you have a lot of different granular levels that you can modify this job, just like the software developers. And that's something that we work with our customers and partners on as well. If there's a certain specific task that they need, of course we can write that into the software, but in the meantime, we can get together with our developers and we can come up with a code, and we can pop in a code in here to do specific things before we make anything permanent. So that's a job level script. We also have different workflows. This particular workflow that we use for this job was to scan, index, and export. We have something in here where we have 2 different index parts or pieces to the workflow. So you'll scan, you'll index, depending upon the information, it'll go right to an export part of the process. If the information doesn't meet a requirement that's been set in the indexing, it's going to go into an additional indexing step. And then we also have one where we just have a scan and export. It just bypasses the indexing. I use this for my expense reports, quite honestly, where I scan in a bunch of receipts and I have this batch set to be named whatever I put in as a job description, and I just might put it in New York City, travel expenses, Mike Paternoster for the week of whatever, and there's no indexing that needs to be done, and it just makes one PDF file and exports it. So sometimes you don't want to index. We have a workflow for that. And again, we allow the administrator to go in and edit the XML information for each one of these workflows. So if I change it to this one, you can see the XML information is going to be a little bit different. But we can go in here and we can add branches and so on and so forth. So we can assign scan profiles to specific jobs, and we can go in and create these scan profiles. I don't have a scanner, again, hooked up, but if I did, I would choose scanner over here and hit my attributes, and it would go out and find that scanner. You can see that sometimes I had various scanners hooked up over here. And if you have a bunch of scanners in your environment, again, you can lock those down to specific job setups. So an operator is not going to get or have to take time to scroll through various scanners when they make their job. This is that separation rule that we spoke about with the barcodes. It's a simple rule where we can choose out of these 21 or 25 or so barcodes over here. And I said in this particular rule, when a barcode is detected, either one of these two barcode 39s, create a new document. And I'm choosing not to delete the page. I can have it delete the page, but if you remember that those housing application forms that we used, that barcode was part of the document that we needed. So if it was a strict or dedicated cover sheet or separator sheet, we can have it find that barcode, separate, and then just say, hey, delete it. Like in that adventure trip job there, if I open up that PDF, there was a patch code sheet in there. So, and I had that set for that job, so it deleted it. You can also separate on certain number of pages, images, blank pages, and again, different patch codes. So, and then the indexing step, these are our index fields right here. So if I go into my index fields, it's going to make this window a little bit bigger. But all of these fields are required. So that means that, again, we can't export that job unless all of these fields are filled in. And you remember that case number, which was based off of the barcode, we have a default value in here set for the barcode. So we can choose from the assortment of variables, and we can also type in custom variables in here as well. If there are multiple barcodes on the page, I can simply say, you know what, I want to skip the first two barcodes that you see, but when you see that third barcode, that's the one that I want you to populate that information with into the case number field. So, and again, these we have set for blank because that's being done with a database lookup. The database lookup is underneath database actions, and if I go to edits, we're using our index field of the case number as our trigger, and this is our data source. It's a Microsoft Access MDB file. That's what we're using, and these are our index fields. And this is how you can map to the columns that are in the database. And that's where the database lookup is performed. The export for this batch, it's not done there. We're doing it on a batch level up over here. So that was our document class, our index fields. Over here, our batch level, we have our export set up for the PDF and our CSV information for our metadata. And again, I can add in another export if I wanted to. I don't have one for a TIFF, I don't believe, but here's an adventure trip TIFF export for my invoices. I can add that over here so that when our housing applications are exported and it makes a PDF, you saw how it did that, and then it made the CSV file. And now I just added another one where it's going to make a TIFF. Again, this is for my adventure trips job, but you can just stack these up in the export configuration so that info input will just go through them one at a time. And you can output this to multiple locations, multiple file systems, network shares, and so on and so forth. We also have the ability to assign this job. I don't have it set up on my computer right now, but we have a mobile app where you can download the app to your phone, simply take a picture on the phone, and if I have this housing application form job available to all our mobile clients, you'll log into the server, of course, where your info input software is installed, and you'll see some screens similar to what you see here, and you can take a picture, populate the index information, whether it's in a pull down or manually type it in, and you can upload it to the info input server just like we uploaded our scanned batches today. And it will be uploaded to an index queue, and depending upon the workflow, it'll scan and index and export, or it might skip the indexing part and just go right to the export. Some people just skip the indexing and they just go right to an export module that feeds into their system. So you can use this software in multiple fashions. So that's a basic overview of the job. You can also back up. You can import these jobs and you can back these jobs up. So whenever you make a change, if I have some jobs that I went in and I modified the script for certain things, I'll just go right into it and export the job and do a quick backup of it. So you can, again, more of a granular level, you can add that on top of your already backup procedures for your server already. So, and like Kelly said earlier, anything we do update-wise with the software, it's done on the server. So the clients, again, in Atlanta, in Ohio, New York City, wherever they are, once they log back into the server, their jobs are there. So an upgrade doesn't have to be pushed out to all the locations. It only has to be done on the server, and then everyone else can see it when they log back in and create a new batch. That's another nice feature of the software. And then again, as the administrator, if I scroll down over here, I can go in and see active users. I can go into user and group administration, and you can see there's some other users in here as well. There's a scan user, index user, and I have groups over here. If I double click on my scan operators group, you can see that they're allowed to look at the batch manager, which we went in. They're allowed to create a batch, which we did. They can delete batches, but they can only delete their own batches. They can't delete a batch that Kelly makes or that, say, I make. They have the ability to scan, and they also have the ability to work offline. So if someone loses their internet connection, they can still work for a period of 48 hours or whatever is defined in the license. When they regain the internet connection, their client will sync with the info input server, and those jobs will be automatically uploaded. That's another nice little feature. This particular group over here, called scan operators, can only see one job. So here's my 21 or 22 jobs that are in there, but I can just simply check and say anyone that's in this group, they can only see this workflow job. If I want them to see all jobs, of course, I can hit that up there. But if I want them to see my Adventure Trips job, I can just choose Adventure Trips and hit Save. And now there's only this scan user right here who's in the scan operator group. He or she will only be able to see two jobs, Adventure Trips or the housing application job, or whatever job was in there that I checked. I don't remember. But yeah, workflow. So again, that's how we touched on that earlier, but that's what that window looks like. Pretty easy. We also have a announcement window over here where we can create an announcement and have it displayed at every login, or just once or once every day. So if you're doing any administration to the server, updates or anything like that, or if it's just HR related, whatever, you can have a message to everybody every time they log in. And you can set a start date and an end date with that as well. So something like that. So those are some of the administration features. We also have an export server administration feature where, again, right now, this is the name of my computer right here, but if we had info input installed on multiple servers, we can set how we want info input to load balance our jobs in our different cities, and I'll use the Atlanta, Georgia location and the Ohio location again. If Kelly is doing a certain amount of jobs that are a high priority, I can assign a dedicated server in New York to all his jobs. So if he's working on this housing application forms, I'm going to assign him my server that's dedicated just for him, and he's also doing adventure trips. I'm going to say these two servers are only going to be used for that right there. So if everyone else is pounding away with these other jobs and he needs a high priority or a dedicated server for load balancing purposes, we can assign servers to specific jobs. So another way you can lock down the settings on the jobs and what they do and how they perform.
We're coming up on the hour. Anybody
Yes.
have any questions over what we reviewed? Any thoughts? Any?
Well, it doesn't look like we had any
to...
questions that came in over chat. So if anybody had any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask right now. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Kelly and Mike, for taking the time out to go over this presentation with us, and I want to thank everyone for joining us today. If you would like a personalized demonstration, or if you would like a more information, feel free to visit our website or send me an email or give us a call. All right, well, thanks again, everybody, and have a great day.
Thanks,
okay,
everyone.
thanks, Olivia. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Olivia. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kelly. Bye.